Good afternoon, and welcome to Education Empowerment Through Collaboration. It is my great pleasure to reintroduce you after this morning's keynote to Blair Anderson. He will come out from the back. Oh, Blair. There we go. He gives someone a high five backstage, and look at that. He's overwhelmed. This is Blair's first time at JNUC, and so yeah, big welcome to Blair, and very big thank you for coming out to your first one. And if we have time afterwards, I am going to get Blair to tell you all about his Chick-fil-A expeditions in Minneapolis. There's a great story behind that, but I think he's got a more interesting story to tell us right now. Thank you, Blair.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you who chose this session to attend this afternoon. Hopefully it's beneficial. One of the things that we deal with, at least in our district and probably in most districts, is the IT department versus staff. And it's probably not even in just education, it's probably in the corporate world as well. So we're going to take some look at different ways that we can collaborate and make that a team effort. And that's what we focus on at Shawnee Heights. I highly recommend you texting out questions to what you see on the screen, but also ways that you collaborate in your district or business that I might not have thought of. And so I'd like to learn from you as well, as instead of just me teaching you. So I have been at Shawnee Heights School District for 17 years, 4.5 as a music teacher at the middle school level, and then went to a year of being an elementary tech and then into the technology director role. So it was kind of a fast transition from leaving teaching into this, but it's been a great move and one that I wouldn't trade. But I also loved my time being an educator. That will always stay with me for the rest of my life, because you actually get to impact students, and that's what it's all about in education. So a little bit about Shawnee Heights. We're just east of Topeka, Kansas, which is about 60 miles from Kansas City. We've got about 3,500 students and 475 staff members. We've got 1 high school, 1 middle school, and 4 elementary schools. Just a little bit about the IT department. And we have a unique, I say unique, department because we don't have a ton of staff members with certifications. We look for people that are coachable and are going to be heavily invested in the education experience. And so we really look at that as we interview potential staff members to join our team. We want to have a family type team, and that's what we have right now at Shawnee Heights, and that's something that's taken a while to get to, but we have finally accomplished that, and we continue to grow. So a little bit about a couple of these positions. Our network specialist, great guy. We just hired him about 2 years ago and hired him from the corporate world. And I think that's, I'll use the term unique again, because you don't see a lot of people going from the corporate world to the education market. It's usually the other way around. And I think for him, it was more of, I don't want to travel. I don't want all the stress, but there's still stress in this job because he has to work with me. But he wanted to start a family. And he didn't want to be gone when he started having kids, and now he's got 2 kids. We love having him at Shawnee Heights along with everybody else, and we hopefully provide some other benefits to this position that maybe can't be done in the corporate world. We have an admin assistant that we have trained to be a technician. So came into our department, no tech experience at all, and now is out at our elementary schools and at our middle school helping users. That takes a lot of training, and it happened not overnight, but about 3 years. And so now she's going to school to get her networking degree. So another uniqueness to us. We have our high school technician is a former math educator that retired, came back, has been working tech. And then we have an elementary tech that got an IT degree from K-State, but also graduated from Shawnee Heights. So we also like to hire people that have graduated from our district because they know the district, they know the teachers, and know the layout of the district. And then we've also started using summer techs. And that's been one program that I think has been very beneficial to us. We have the one tech that we have right now actually is going to St. Cloud up here in Minnesota to studying meteorology. And she has taken responsibility, a lot of it, for our iPad deployments the last couple of years. We just have kind of given that to her, and she has run with that. And so now, I learned over the summer that she is starting to minor in technology. So kind of cool to see somebody go for meteorology. We weren't putting the pressure on her, but she has enjoyed it that much, and now is getting a minor. Being from Kansas, hopefully everybody has heard of Bill Snyder at K-State, but we kind of take our recruiting philosophy off of his program. Somebody that's coachable, that's going to put in a lot of effort, has enthusiasm, leadership, and takes on that responsibility. And again, we get that through the questions that we ask during the interview process. Just like every department, we have a ton of responsibilities. It seems like everything that plugs into an outlet is automatically IT. How many other people have that in their district or business? Yep. So we have 385 network devices, about 2,400 iPads, 1,400 computers, phone system, HVAC, mobile device management system, JAMP, and the last one is more kind of a joke, but I bet it's going to be coming soon. Networking toilets is about the only thing we have yet that's not networked. When I started 12 years ago in this position, did I think I would be helping with fire alarms and HVAC? No, but you grow with it and you learn from it, and it's kind of nice to be able to work with our buildings and grounds coordinator with those systems, so I've actually learned a little bit from that. Our daily priorities for IT department, hopefully these are your priorities as well, but students and educators are number one priority. And our superintendent will back that statement up. If he calls saying, Blair, I need this, and I say, but this student can't do this, he's like, that student comes first. And that's really what our department addresses every day, is the issues that are impacting the students and educators. Obviously, just like everybody else, we need to keep our users secure and data secure. We want to provide a solid network and server infrastructure to support any district initiatives, either now or 2 to 3 years down the road. I went to a session yesterday with the IT and curriculum that was up on 9th floor, and a lot of good points in that presentation. But you always have to be ready for what's coming down the road, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. Okay, what are they going to need? How many VMs, wireless access points, etc. The fourth one, is to be available to answer questions and fix tech issues, even after the workday is done. And that's a tough one to get your IT department to understand, because we all like to work that 8 to 5 job. But especially in education, that 8 to 5 job, teachers are spending that in the classroom, teaching kids, worrying about music, PE, who's sick, who's having an issue at home. They might not even be on their computer during the day. And so when they're doing their work, it's either before school or after school. And so one of the things that we pride ourselves on is answering those emails or text messages or instant messaging or phone calls after hours if it's critical, because they need it resolved now. They can't wait till morning, because if you wait till morning, it's going to be in the afternoon for that. And the last one is don't be in the spotlight, especially from an IT standpoint. We want things to work just like everybody else does, and we don't want to be in the classrooms all the time and they're like, oh great, IT department's here again, something's not working, or we can't do what we need to do because this computer's broken. So try not to be in the spotlight. And the quote there is, without students and educators, we don't have a job, and that's something that I firmly believe. You can maintain service, but you're going to run out of stuff. So we are there for the students and educators. And I think all IT departments, no matter if you're education or corporate, are facing unique challenges. We'll go through some of these. K through 12 schools specifically have inadequate staffing to integrate the technology into the classroom and to implement new technology. IT departments remain the same in size or shrink despite a rise in IT devices. Half of the technicians' workload is being spent being reactive rather than proactive. And I think everyone's dealing with aging systems and software, which makes it even more difficult, and it takes more time for IT to do that and to support. IT staffing is being outsourced to other companies. So companies coming into the district or to the business to fix it, they get out. They don't really have that flexibility to say, okay, you're teaching right now, but I can't wait for your plan time. It's got to be done now. So that's a huge issue. And then just the average number of students per technician, and I just kind of pulled a number from some of the surveys that I've seen out there, but the average is probably around 950. It depends on the size of your district. And then about 200 educators per technician. That's not even including the amount of devices that we all have, because most teachers have an iPad and some type of laptop. And this is a chart that I pulled off of a recent School Dude survey, and it just kind of highlights, again, what we've been talking about, not enough staff. And you think, wow, 66% don't have the support that the school or the district needs. Most of those numbers are at least 55% or higher. So we're continually asked we have too much stuff, not enough staff, lack of funds to meet growing IT demands, and then obviously the expectations continue to rise. And so the challenge for any IT department is, how do we adapt? And I think the solution is empowering our educators. And it's tough to do that. And one of the things in yesterday's session was talking about the IT director and giving up control. And that was the toughest thing to do, and it's still tough for me today, but I think the more that we can empower, the better we will be as a business or as a district. At Shawnee Heights, we do a lot of collaboration, and it starts with curriculum. The curriculum director, the educators, the principals, they review the curriculum every 2 to 3 years. And that process can take weeks to months to a year. And during that time, they're mapping out what they're going to teach, what standards are they going to address for their curriculum. And it's all documented on a curriculum map, so it's laid out. So if Susie walks in off the street and is teaching social studies, her first year at Shawnee Heights, she's got a curriculum map, and it spells it out right then and there exactly what's going to happen each month. Still giving that teacher flexibility to do other activities, but it gives that person a guideline. Once they get all of this down, then the educators that are involved in this review start researching the devices, the apps. What are they going to need to implement this into the classroom? So it's not IT saying, this is what you need. It's them saying, I think this is what's going to work best for us. And then that's when the IT department comes into play, and we start collaborating on ideas, what's going to be required to support what they've come up with during their research, and then when can it be implemented? Is it going to take a couple of months, or is it going to be a year out? Obviously, we talk about funding at some point. That probably happens throughout all of this process, unless you know, okay, I've got an unlimited budget, but most people do not have that. Talked about timeline for implementation, and then as we start training people, we do train the trainer model. How many people do train the trainer model in this room? Okay, it's really good model because you send those educators to a training with the expectation that they are going to come back and train their staff. And I think staff members learn better from their peers rather than having myself or somebody from IT get up and explain it, because we don't know always how it's going to impact the classroom. But that teacher that's training them has gone through that. So I think that's a very important step, and it also saves the IT department from having to spend their time and energy, and they can address issues that are impacting students in the classroom and not be training people. Collaboration. We've talked about that a little bit already, but I think it's critical, and I cannot stress this enough, that the curriculum director and the technology director are on the same page, because those two departments are almost one anymore. If there's not a daily phone call or a weekly phone call, then I kind of wonder what's going on. Do I still have a job if I'm not hearing something from the curriculum director? But if you're in a situation that team is not as strong as you'd like, then pick up the phone or reach out to that person and say, what's going on? Because if not, you're just going in two different ways, and you're just going to continually battle each other. So that's a strong recommendation on my part. Be involved. Attend board meetings and principal meetings. I don't think anybody likes to sit in meetings, but that is where you learn a lot of stuff that's going on that maybe does not get handed down or communicated to IT departments. Sometimes we're the last to know. But if you go to those meetings, at least you can kind of clue in as to, oh, this might be hitting our plate. Maybe not right away, but down the road. We meet with our librarians and instructional coaches on a regular basis, either through email or meeting in person, because those people, at least in our district, those are assigned to each building. So each building has a librarian, each building has an instructional coach. So those are really the tech leaders for that building. They know what's going on, they know who has the issues, what issues are being impacted throughout their building, and so they are really kind of a part of the IT department, at least in our district. And then we form a technology committee comprised of educators from each building that meet monthly or quarterly. Those aren't always fun meetings because they usually turn into this isn't working, this is what's wrong, here's your homework list, we want it all resolved by tomorrow when we walk in. But I think they're good, at least you know, and then maybe you can communicate to them, we understand that this is a top priority, but here's the issues that we're facing. Maybe it's a bug, maybe it's a hardware issue. And I think if you explain that, then they can go back and they can help communicate that to their colleagues. And then just, again, staying informed on curriculum initiatives and provide input on how technology could enhance the implementation. So if they're thinking about putting in a Canvas, an LMS, maybe there's something that the IT department can see that say, hey, have you thought about this? I think this would really help make that implementation better. And hopefully that will be helpful to the district. We use two different software things to collaborate. We're a Google Apps school, or I should say G Suite now is their new name. But you can create documents and share that with other people and see, and we even run our staff meetings on it on a weekly basis. So it's kind of nice to go back and look at what's been shared out with you. But we also are starting to use Office 365. Both are great platforms to use. They're two out of many of the platforms available, but those are the two that we use in our district. Just like anything, communication is key. And I listed the top, some of the ones that we communicate a lot with. Typically, if there's a major issue going on, we email our district administrators, principals, librarians, and instructional coaches and say, here's the issue, we explain what's going on, but we allow them to figure out what's the best way to communicate that information to their staff. It might be done via a staff meeting, it might be done on an email, cut and paste some of the information we sent out. It might be just one-on-one with certain individuals, but we at least try to keep them in the loop, especially your district administrators or central office administrators, because those are the ones that are usually communicating a lot to board members or patrons. And And always, if you've got a Sonic in your area, it's always good to bring Sonic drinks every once in a while to those, or a special treat to those people, because they are your friends and they will save you and they help you out a lot. We also try to explain, because one of the frustrations that we get, and I went to a conference 2 weeks ago in Kansas, that people say, oh, technology is always changing something every summer. They're never happy. They always got to spend money on something new. Why in the heck is that? I can never keep up. And I think we try to explain, so this summer we switched our MDMs back to JAMF. And so we explain that to our staff. It's not because we want to wipe all your devices clean so we can re-supervise them to another MDM. It's not that we want to go to your laptop and see what you have on it and take another program off and add on another program. We're not trying to slow down your machine. It's going to be better moving forward because we can control the apps. We can do other things that our previous MDM could not provide us. And then hopefully they understand that if you actually give a reason why and not, we just want to make your life miserable. You even got a chuckle somewhere out there. Emails need to be short and to the point, especially when communicating. Keep them at a high level is what we found best, but you also have to give them enough information so that they feel like they're included. And then the use of social media. We have a Facebook page, we do Twitter, you name it. We try to reach our audience the best we can. And that's even an audience, I mean teachers, paras, bus drivers, patrons, you name it. You need to get the word out. Because it seems like anymore, especially in Kansas, we don't get a lot of snow anymore. So we really don't need those snow days. We almost need technology's not working day off, because that's almost when they think they need to cancel school. Thankfully, that does not happen very often in our district. I think the biggest slide here is end user support when it comes to collaboration. Because I think a lot of people are scared of IT staff members. I think they see us walking in and they're like, oh no, here he comes or here she comes. They're gonna break something, they're gonna make my life worse, they're gonna say no, they're grumpy. I'm sure you've all heard it before. And so I think one of the best things you can do is when you go in is to listen and document and understand what they are either requesting or how the issue is impacting their classroom. Because to them, it's the number one priority in their life. It might be number 100 on your list, but you need to listen to them and make them feel like that it's the top thing. Explain to users how the request or issue will be addressed and the possible time frame to when it will be addressed. Make sure they understand what the next steps are before you leave their classroom, and then keep them updated on a regular basis. I know in our district we get a lot of it. I think my request just goes out to the cloud, or you have an inbox rule that says if it's from Susie Q, just move that email to the trash can. So I think if you can update them, that is the best thing. And if the request can't be met or implemented, explain why. Just don't say no. It's not going to happen. Thanks for asking. Because I think it's received better because then they feel like you gave it attention, you thought about it, and then maybe you have to say no. One of the things that we do for our end user support that a lot of people do is have a work order system. And I think that's great because you can see all the lists that are impacting either a building or the district or by user. And we give principals access to that so they can review what's going on in their building and see, okay, technician A has not done anything with this work order or web ticket or whatever you want to call it for 10 days. Wonder what's going on. Better bug that technician when he's in my office and say, hey, what's the update on this ticket? But it also gives you a chance to communicate through that ticket. So if somebody comes to me complaining, usually the first place I go to is have they submitted a web ticket or a work order, what has been the communication back and forth between the technician and the teacher. And if there's been none on either part, then I can go to that person and say, well, there hasn't really been any communication, or there was a question posed and nobody's answered it. So it's kind of nice to have that documentation, especially if you have a large clientele. Talked a little bit about availability, and this was a tough one because I have 24/7, 365, and obviously I don't crack the whip that much, at least at Shawnee Heights, but I think all of our technicians do a good job of being available. And we kind of talked about that, yeah, educators are focused on teaching students during the day, and it's at night when they have the questions. So family time is important. You have to step away from work, especially in the IT world, because otherwise you'll just burn yourself out. But check that phone and check that email, or at least give out your contact information, because I know a lot of people keep that pretty secret, or they don't feel like they can reach out to that technician directly. Giving up control. For us, we have several programs that we've done this for. We continue to maintain the software, and obviously the server, we don't give them that responsibility. But an example is Read 180. We've had that in our district for quite a while. It's a program that we have access to administratively, but I couldn't tell you how to manage Read 180 on a day-to-day basis. You know, if they need new students entered or taken out or transferred from one teacher to the other. So we give our Read 180 teachers complete control, admin control of that software, and they run it. They do it all. The only thing we do is if we need to contact tech support, we might do that. If there's a new version release, we'll do the upgrade, we'll do the server updates, but otherwise they run that on a day-to-day basis. PowerSchool, that's, I think most people or anybody that has a student information system probably has multiple hands in that pot. Obviously, we have somebody in our IT department that manages it and talks to those people on a regular basis, but you have people in there putting in information and changing data. Learning management system, we use Canvas. That's just one of the many options. But with that one, we've even given the support, and we had to buy the support for teachers and students to contact Canvas directly for tech support, instead of going through the IT department and then the IT department calling them, and then, oh, they have a question for the teacher, so we go back. You get caught in that loop. And so it was worth the $1,500 or $2,000 to buy the additional support that they can just call directly. That way, if students have an issue at night, taking a quiz or submitting homework, tech support has it, our phones aren't ringing, and they get their answers right away. So it's kind of nice. But again, it's tough to go up control. You still have to have some safety guidelines in place so the users know it's not good to do this, and you obviously don't want them making major changes on servers or network. Recently, we moved to Jamf. We participated in the Apple pilot that was released in January for 9.3. And so one of the best things that we've done and will be doing as we continue to deploy this is giving every teacher access to Apple Classroom, because that gives them the ability to manage those devices in their classrooms the way that they want to, without us being involved. So they can view student screens, they can open apps on student iPads, they can navigate them to a certain website, they can lock them down. But the best thing that they can do is reset. If you're using Apple managed IDs, is they have the ability to reset them themselves. So there's no longer a call, email, or ticket coming to us to say, Johnny forgot his Apple ID, can you please reset it? They can do it right there on the fly, and the kid's back up and going. So we're talked a little bit about this earlier. We're still waiting for the ability, at least for PowerSchool, to integrate with Apple School Manager. But I know Apple and PowerSchool are working on that. So it's a lot of work right now to get it done. If you want to start using this in your district, because you have to do a lot of manual importing from your SIS into Apple School Manager, and then that flows to JAMF. But it is great. Teachers love having this kind of control. We used a similar product to Apple Classroom last year, so that's why they are beating us up every day waiting to get it. And then one of the biggest things that we did this spring, and we talked a little bit about it, especially when IBM was on the keynote, was giving our users a choice of what laptop they wanted when we replaced them this summer. We gave them the chance to go Apple or PC, so we were all PC at that point, and we ended up having 90% of our staff choose Apple. And then the rest of them obviously chose PC. It's kind of funny, the PCs we ended up running the Windows 10 operating system on a Mac device. So because that was the best hardware that we could find that was going to last forever, it ran great, but it also gave us flexibility. Because if a teacher said this year, hey, I want Windows 10, but then they leave at the end of this school year, the next teacher coming in wants an Apple operating system, we're not buying a different laptop. We're just taking off Windows 10, flipping back over to the Mac side, and we're ready to go. So it gives even new staff members that we haven't even hired yet some of the flexibility. And then since a lot of our educators already had iPads in their classrooms, and now they're going to have a Mac laptop, we did Apple TVs. So we purchased 4th gen Apple TVs for all of our classrooms and conference rooms. And it was a good decision because it allowed us to clean up our classrooms. We used to have cables everywhere. And no matter how you try to install those professionally, they still get knocked off the wall. You still have kids tripping on them. You have teachers rolling their chairs over them and crushing the ends on them, and so you have to replace them. And then there's always the need for a different type of dongle depending on what type of iPad they had. And so getting rid of that, now you could sync in it, you could display any of your devices at any time in your classroom. So the Apple TV has been pretty good implementation, working through some issues with Apple, but for the most part, it is a great product, especially not having to deal with cables. So to close, I want to thank everyone for attending this session, for all you do for students and educators and staff, and to the educators in the audience, thank you for everything you do for IT departments to help us out, but also for kids. And my biggest advice is we need to work together as a team, especially IT and educators. So hopefully you can go back and find ways to do that. Hopefully we gave you some ideas today and here, but hopefully some people submitted some of their ideas online. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Blair. That was great. So we do have a few questions that have come in on Twitter, and I would encourage you, because I know that Blair wants to hear your stories as well, so I'd encourage you to put your stories into JNUC 2016 Power as well. But the first question that we have for you is that you mentioned that you give access to JAMF to your teachers as well. What level of access do you give them?
We're still working on that level. Since JAMF is so new to us, we're looking at giving them read access only at this point, just so they can get in and view, and then we'll work through that. So JAMF we're still making quite a few changes on the IT end, so we don't want to just throw them into it and give them everything, so we'll probably do read only and then work with different groups and progress that along.
Excellent. And of all of the teachers, how many of them do you see utilizing the Apple Classroom app in their classrooms?
I would say almost all of them utilize the Apple TV in their classrooms.
And the Classroom app as well?
Classroom app, we only have one at the middle school and one at the high school right now, but I know every teacher at both of those buildings are wanting to have that.
Clamoring. I think the word is clamoring.
Yes, yes.
Excellent. And so you also mentioned that you purchase 100% Macs, and then the ones who need Windows, you just install Windows on that?
Yes, yep, so we, all Macs, yeah, and then we just configure them for the
Do you have any
Windows side of it.
stats on what percentage you see going which way?
90% went Mac and then 10% were Windows. And it's kind of funny, we've even given out some Windows machines, and then a couple weeks later, a couple days later, they'll call and say, I went Windows for whatever reason, now I want to go back to being Mac. So it's kind of, we've already had some people flip-flop around.
Excellent. And so, this is a great question. Sort of thinking ahead into the future, education 15 years from now, what do you think IT support is going to look like then?
15 years from now. I think it's going to change drastically. Probably be replaced with robots. Hopefully not. I mean, I think you're going to see a whole lot more students involved, and that's a tough one.
Well, it actually leads really nicely into the very next question that's come out, is what is your current level of student involvement with your tech department?
We started a student tech program 3 years ago, and we had 3 kids in that, and then we went down to 2, and then down to 1, and then this year and last year we gave it up a little bit just because there's so much going on in our department. It's tough to always have somebody in the IT department stationed when they are there for class. So it was our responsibility. And so we're working with the high school. We still want to get this re-implemented and maybe having them report to the librarian or instructional coach or principal or some other person to kind of oversee it. We'll be glad to work with it, but if an emergency pulls all of us out, it's tough to always make sure somebody's back at the office to do that. But student techs are great because they hear a lot in the classroom. So if you get some really good techs, they can report back to us of here's what the teachers are saying. Or you also get a lot of input on here's what students are doing that they're not supposed to be doing. Here's how they're getting around the firewall. We learned a lot from them. I know they learned a lot from us.
Excellent. And just a new one. What is your use case for giving teachers access to the JSS?
Probably so they can see for teachers, so they could see either what apps are on that device, because kids will always say, I don't have that app on my device, so I can't do my homework, but they might actually have it. They could see the last time it was used. I think a lot of our teachers wonder, how do you know when iPads are stolen or lost, or is a kid telling the truth or not? So you can also, by having that access, they can say, okay, well, it checked in 3 hours ago, but they don't have it with them, so it's definitely somewhere. I think it's tough. They would like to have the ability to install apps themselves or push apps to these student iPads, but there's a lot involved in that, especially since we do the volume purchasing of apps, and so I just don't want them saying, oh, wow, look at all these apps. We're just going to push them out and fill up the iPads. So probably won't give them that access, but just being able to see who's got what on their devices.
Excellent. We've got some feedback from our audience as well, that they've opened up access on their JSS so that their teachers can have access to the classes specifically, so they can set up their own classes for Apple Classroom.
Good suggestion, yep.
Cool. And I'm happy to run out into the audience as well. I'll try not to break a leg running up and down stairs. Is there anyone who actually would like to ask a live question? Hang on one second, and I'm going to run. Oh, you're way up there. No, yell louder, and I'll repeat it.
Do you use interactive whiteboards or 85-inch TVs, or what are you connecting those Apple TVs up to?
We have short throw projectors mounted above some old-fashioned whiteboards or screens, and then we also do ceiling-mounted projectors.
Would that be with an iPad? I mean, for actually writing stuff out like equations, or is it all laptop-based?
We do a kind of a combination of that. So we don't have any smart boards. We kind of skipped that phase. We went to tablets. So that way it gave the teachers the ability to walk around. And if they need to do something like that, some of them are doing what they call Mimeo Teach, which you can put on a whiteboard and it acts just like a smart board. And so typically what they have is the Mimeo Teaches in their classrooms that allows them to do that. Or they'll find an app on their iPad to accomplish that.
Excellent. Do we have any other questions? You can yell down so I can repeat them, or is there anyone who wants me to run into the audience? We got one up there, and so if you can shout it and I'll repeat it so that everyone can hear.
When you transition from one MDM to the other, how long did that process take, and how did you go about handling bringing again the iPad? Because teachers that have dealt with that kind of like to hang on to that.
So the question is, obviously you've done a transition from one MDM platform to another. How long did that take you, and how did you go about that process, understanding that retrieving devices can be a challenge?
It was the easiest thing we've ever done. We still have both MDMs up and running, even today. So we started this project in middle of July is when we did our jump start. And I was the only one left on our staff from our that had seen JAMP before when we had it the first time around. So we went through a lot. We took a little bit of time getting set up, but we're really trying to get everything cut over and have that other MDM gone within the next couple of weeks. But it's tough because our timing wasn't good. That was some of our fault, but some of it wasn't. It was just out of our control because we would have liked to have this going in June and have most of the summer to do it, but it was July. We're rolling out Apple TVs. We're rolling out new staff laptops, and then you had all the 2,400 iPads going back out. So we try to be flexible with people. We've got one right now that I can think of that is throwing up a fit, not giving up the iPad, and at some point, you have to talk to the administrator and the teacher to say, this is why we need to do it. And then at some point, we'll probably block that MAC address on our wireless controller so it can't access the internet, and it's going to make it a little painful. But we try to do our best to work through that, and hopefully it doesn't get to that point.
All right, I'm running up the stairs.
I actually just have something to add to this. We ended up changing our environments from one. We've got about 12,000 iPads and about 2,000 to 2,500 are in the hands of teachers. And when we changed environments, still in JAMP, what we finally ended up having to do, trying to wrangle these things in, is almost impossible. We finally ended up just changing the SSID and then removing the old one. It's amazing how quick they want to fix things when they can't get onto the wireless on the network. So just something to add to that. But and additionally, we re-enroll all our devices every year, and it's amazing. The comment about where is technology going? We've had, without any tech involvement, 8,000 devices enrolled by the students themselves and the teachers without any tech involvement other than getting them up to the latest iOS at the beginning of the school year to hand out. It's amazing, and I wish we could get to some of the point that you're doing with Apple TVs and actually getting the buy-in from our school district on all of the Apple products. But great job.
Takes a while, and it's tough to do an MDM switch, but it's been good because, like you, we found devices that we forgot that were out there that maybe didn't get joined when we did the previous MDM. You quickly learn who's on what iOS and get those up to date, and you figure out which devices aren't district owned so they can't be supervised. That's one of our other goals, is to get everything supervised, so then you start trading out those that can't be. So yeah.
Okay, we've got one more question that's coming in over Twitter, and the question is, besides teachers, do you see giving JAMP access to other school staff, so media librarians or principals or tech coaches?
We do see that in our last year, again, previous MDM, all those people had access to it, and actually had more access in that software than what they would probably have in JAMP, just at least for the start. But we did a really good job. We try to, the biggest thing for for us is apps and getting those push downs because we're doing the device-based licensing instead of needing an Apple ID. And so we've been trying to get those turned around within 24 hours. And so if we're meeting that, then the demands to have access to that goes away because then they're happy.
All right, and unless there's anyone else in the audience who has one more question, I actually wanted to follow up on a comment that you made this morning with regards to how you're hiring people into your department. And I thought it was very interesting what you look for in a new employee. And I was wondering if you might be able to expand on that a little bit more about how you go about hiring new staff on.
Again, you just want somebody that, I mean, you're going to spend more time with this person on a normal day than you probably do your kids or your spouse. And so we want somebody that can interact with people, that are not, you always have to say everything in this world is about money, and I understand that, but you're never going to be able to match the money that they're going to make somewhere else. So you have to offer something, and you want them to work here for some reason. You want to get to that. So why do they want to work in the education environment? I think it's one of the best environments to work in because every day is something different. You're never going to just do just networking or just servers because we just don't have the staff for that. You have to answer the phone call. You have to fix a case issue. It doesn't matter how high up you are. You have to do everything. And so I think that's just something you look at, and you have to ask those questions. And how do they prioritize? Because prioritizing stuff in the education is much different, I think, than in a corporate world.
Excellent. Okay, and I want to make sure you have enough time to head on to the next session. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for Blair to coming out, and I hope you've enjoyed your first JNUC.
I have.
And we look forward to seeing you again here. Thank you, Blair.
Thank you all.